Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful Monday afternoon. We're here to talk basketball, but I do want to say that, before I start this podcast, if my phone does go off at any time during this podcast, it is my birthday, so I have, no control over that. A lot of people are going to be texting me, and they've already texted me earlier this morning, so I can't really control all of that. But anyways, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Olympics and the results. The Olympic results have concluded, and the United States men's team and women's team ended up finishing their Olympic tournament. I'm going to focus on the men's for this one. I'll probably do the women's tomorrow in one of these segments, so be sure to tune into tomorrow if you're interested on that. But I'm basically going to talk about who won the gold medal and who won the silver and who won the bronze. And then in the second segment, I'm going to talk about LeBron winning the FIBA MVP because that's just another addition to his resume. I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. Then in the third segment, I'm going to talk about the world champion of what debate and, just my opinions and where I stand on that debate. As well as in the fourth segment, I'm going to talk about why Tyrese Haliburton didn't play in a majority of these games with the United States and why I didn't really cover him not playing nearly as much as as I talked about Jason Tatum playing. We also have a special fifth segment that I like to do at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I reveal it at the end of the fourth segment, so in case you guys are interested in that, I will reveal that segment towards the end. But before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody that we all love hearing from you guys during the show, whether you've got a burning question, a hot take, or anything on the game, just something that you've been dying to share. We're all ears. This show is all about keeping the conversation lively and making sure that your voice is a part of the mix. So don't be shy to drop your thoughts in the chat. If you really want to make sure your comment or question gets noticed, use Super Chat. Just hit the $ below the chat box, send your message, and it's guaranteed to get featured on the show. Plus, it's a great way to support your channel. And for Super Chats, help us keep the lights on and bring you even more of the content that you love. We're so grateful for each and every one of you who joins us here, and the support you do and the support that you bring really makes a difference. So let's keep the conversation going. Send in those Super Chats together, and we'll make sure this show is better than ever. If Super Chat isn't your thing, you could also use the link gsmcsportsnetwork.net. Really helps the show. You could tip, donate, and leave a comment or question. We appreciate every bit of your support. So with that out of the way, let's go right ahead and talk about the Olympic matchups and who ended up winning the gold. This was a very great Olympics. It's been a while since I followed the Olympics this intensely, so I'm very grateful that I was able to do this and that I got the opportunity to do this because this Olympic team was something special. And this Olympics as a whole also was something special. So the final score of this game, the United States ended up beating the French team in this matchup. It was a pretty close game. And, the United States, they easily ended up winning. I expected them to win in this matchup between the French team, given how, they were super close to losing to Serbia, sure. But aside from that, this game was great. It's a fantastic game. Serbia also ended up beating Germany as well in the bronze medal game. And the score was 93-83 in favor of the Serbian team. It was a great matchup between the two of them, and really, the score it wasn't really that. It wasn't all that. The United States, they came in, they did what they had to do to beat the French team, and LeBron, he ended up putting a performance for the ages: 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 10 assists. Just a phenomenal game coming in from him. And Steph Curry as well, he also ended up playing very well in this game. He really stepped up in the last two games for the United States in a very big way compared to how he was for a majority of the tournament. He ended up scoring 24 points, ended up getting 1 rebound as well as 5 assists. I mean, he was a different beast for the United States team when they desperately needed him to be one. And I mean, this game, it was just a great game overall. Great game from Steph, great game from LeBron, great game from Devin Booker as well, and a great game from, not a really good game from Joel Embiid, I will say, but a good game from Kevin Durant, and a great game from Anthony Davis as well. And they all played their role to the best that they could, and they got the job done. I mean, it would have been a crime if they didn't finish the way that they did, and if they didn't end up winning, because like all of the scrutiny around this team and all the trash talk, I guess you could say, and all of the because there was a lot of pressure in these games for the United States assembling the team that they've assembled. They were really garnering the attention. Like, they really put a target on their back because every single team wanted to try and beat that team, because it's like a lot of people were calling that Olympic squad one of the best Olympic squads ever assembled for the United States. And that's saying a lot, because like, I mean, with the way that basketball has evolved now, and from the way that it was before when the 1992 Dream Team entered the Olympics, like, it really, there was a lot of pressure on this, because like this team was getting compared to the Dream Team for a majority of their Olympic run, because, you know, what Michael Jordan and LeBron, they always got to get compared with each other, so it only makes sense. And a lot of people were arguing which team was better. And before even winning the gold medal, arguing which team was better is a huge risk, because if they ended up losing, if they would have lost to Serbia in that round, then all of their arguments for being one of the best Olympic teams ever assembled would have blown up right in their face. Like, you have to go flawless if you want to be considered one of the best teams in the United States, because that's sort of the standard that all of these teams have put on themselves, and the standard that all of these, American athletes are supposed to have. It's like a stimulus that you gotta have. And like, it's not so much like because like you're American, but more so because like you're part of the NBA, and the NBA is often gousted as the best league for all of basketball, which it is. Like, I mean, everyone says it. I mean, that doesn't necessarily make it true, but it is in this case. And it's like, you have to win if you want to even be considered in this category for best Olympic men's team. Because, like, I mean, having LeBron, having Steph, having KD, like, you would immediately think that this team was the best team ever assembled just off of those three. I mean, those three have dominated the 2010s and are still dominating in their league today, even though it's been well over a decade since they've all been drafted. And LeBron, well over 2 decades since he's been drafted. And, I mean, the way that these guys have been playing all throughout the Olympics, it was very shaky. Like, they weren't always dominating like how the 92 Olympic Dream Team would always dominate. But then again, they faced much more competition than the 92 Dream Team ever faced. So that sort of like evens it out, I guess. And even then, they still ended up winning. There was a lot of, controversy around how they ended up winning. Obviously, benching Tatum for 2 games wasn't a very popular decision. Steve Kerr's rotations also weren't a very popular decision. So, I mean, thankfully, they ended up winning. If the United States didn't end up winning, Steve Kerr was going to get a lot of scrutiny for not being able to lead this team to an Olympic gold medal. And while we are on the topic of getting medals, Serbia did receive the bronze medal against the Germans when they were playing like really early in the morning and fighting for the 3rd place spot, and they seemed very happy after ending up getting that gold medal. Well, not the gold medal, but ending up getting that medal, because like, it's a great honor to represent your country, and it's a great honor to win when you finish up the Olympics. And it should also be noted that Jokic went immediately to Serbia and is watching his horse race again. So it's a happy ending for everyone. And the game, the game between Germany, I wasn't really that excited for that game, because again, I was much more excited for the first place game, because you guys already know my opinion on the Olympic, on winning third place in any sort of competition. I would rather not. And I mean, let me know in the comments what you guys think of this Olympic team. Do you guys think that does this make them world champions? Does this not make them world champions? Because I'm going to have a little debate on that in the third segment, where I talk about the world champion debate, because it's been very popular since the United States ended up winning the gold medal, because there's a lot of beef between Noah Lyles and these NBA players. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk a little about that. But this is coming up in the third segment. So in the second segment, I'm going to talk about the FIBA MVP. LeBron ended up taking home the FIBA MVP, so I'm just going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that, my opinions on that, right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, I'm going to talk about LeBron winning the FIBA MVP and just, my opinions on that. But before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody that we do love hearing all of your opinions during the show. Whether you've got a question, a hot take for the game, or just something that you've been dying to share, we are all ears. So this show is all about keeping the conversation lively and making sure that your voice is a part of the mix. So don't be shy to drop any of your thoughts in the chat. And if you really want to make sure that your comment or question gets noticed, why not just use Super Chat? You just hit the $ below the chat box, send in your message, and it's guaranteed to get featured on the show. It's also a great way to support the channel, and we're so grateful for each and every one of you who joins and here to support us, and it makes all the difference. So let's keep the conversation going. Send in those super chats, and together we can make this show better than ever. If super chat isn't really your thing, you can also go to the link gsmcsports.net to tip or donate and leave a comment or question. Really helps the show. We appreciate every bit of your support. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and go into the second segment, which is all about LeBron. He ended up winning the FIBA MVP towards the conclusion of this Olympics. Obviously, he was the number one favorite to win this award. Throughout the entirety of the Olympics, he has been the best player for the United States, and so being the best player on the best team basically guarantees you an MVP award, because that is the best way to represent value, what you do to impact your team and winning. because, why do you play the sport if you don't try to win in it? And with this MVP, LeBron James now becomes the first player in basketball history to win a regular season MVP, an NBA Finals MVP, an NBA All-Star Game MVP, an NBA in-season tournament MVP, and finally an Olympic MVP. And he has done all of this throughout the span of his career. And, if there was no argument for him being the GOAT, I don't think there isn't anymore. I honestly didn't think that there was once he broke Kareem's record for total points, but a lot of people like to hate, and at this point, if you like Jordan, no one is going to change your mind, and if you think he's the GOAT, no one will ever be able to change your mind. If you think LeBron's the GOAT, no one will ever be able to change your mind, and that's sort of how the debate stands and where it is right now. But given all of this and everything that he's done throughout his tenure, I don't think there's really any argument for that anymore. He was able to live through, the conception of an Olympic MVP even being thought of, and here he is winning an Olympic MVP. Because he was playing in a league, and same with Michael Jordan. For a while, he was playing in a league and in an era where there was no Olympic MVP to even win. And here he is, now that there's an Olympic MVP, winning that Olympic MVP. Same thing with the in-season tournament. There was no in-season tournament award, there was no in-season tournament MVP, and here he is winning these awards the minute that they're, thought of. So, his longevity is something completely out of this world, something that we haven't seen before. And a lot of people were arguing that Steph Curry should have won the award, that this was a robbery from Steph. Steph deserved the Olympic MVP more than LeBron. And I'm just going to say that these are just, if you believe that, then you must be a really heavy Curry fan, because if you had to have watched the entirety of the Olympics to know that LeBron was the MVP, because if you were just watching the final two games of these Olympics, then it would make sense. Yeah, it would make total sense to put Curry as the MVP. In fact, if the MVP was based off of the games in, the quarterfinals and forward, then maybe you would have had an argument for Steph Curry being robbed. But given how it's an award that's won throughout all of the Olympics, throughout the entirety of your Olympic play, then it makes sense that LeBron should have won, because Curry, throughout most of the Olympics, was very underwhelming. It was only up until the final two games where Steph Curry actually played like Steph Curry. Meanwhile, LeBron was was on average the best player on the United States. And the numbers that he was putting up every given night was MVP caliber numbers for FIBA, because obviously, his numbers, they aren't going to be nearly as impressive as they are in the NBA, because his usage rate is much lower, and because of the team that he's on. He's not going to try and force himself to score 27 points every single game when you have someone like Kevin Durant to play with, when you have someone like Steph, and when you have all of those players on the team. You aren't going to be trying to focus on scoring. And that's really been how this Olympic teams have been playing, and this is sort of how the game is supposed to be played when you're on the Olympics. You can't really focus on scoring the ball all that much on a team full of scorers. You have to make sure that everyone else gets a little bit of the ball, because that's just the best way to win. And the fact that, again, just LeBron winning the MVP, he definitely deserved it. This was his award to lose, and it was really, how can you not expect LeBron to win this award? Let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you guys think maybe this award should have gone to someone else. One thing that I should mention is that Devin Booker, throughout the entire Olympics, Devin Booker has been very good for the United States. Arguably, their most underrated player in the entirety of the Olympics, because he was doing everything that the United States needed him to do when they needed him to do it. Aside from the Serbian game, where I don't think it was right for him to be playing over Jason Tatum, he was still producing in a majority of the games that he was participating in. So without his performances, it would be very difficult to say that we would have ended up winning the gold, because like all of these players, all of them, like they all chipped in when we desperately needed them to. I mean, Haliburton not so much, but then again, like you can't really expect much from someone who isn't playing. More on him later in the fourth segment. And shout out to everyone else who was in the running for this award, because I mean, it's not like they were going to end up winning it over somebody like LeBron. I mean, he was just, being the face of the team, closing out in all these games that he needed them to close, that they needed him in. So, I mean, shout out to Jokic, Schroeder, Durant, Wagner, Bogdanovic, Wembanyama, Yabusele, who's now being dubbed as the French Ben Wallace, Anthony Davis, and Daniel Tice. They were all in the ladder and in the running for winning the MVP, but LeBron, this was his award to lose, and he wasn't going to lose this award. He needs to add on to that resume. And should also be noted that with this gold medal, LeBron now has more Olympic gold medals than Michael Jordan has in his career. So there's one more thing that LeBron has to his legacy, having more gold medals than Michael Jordan. And I mean, he's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame, but really, that's all that I have for you on this segment, because, there's not really much I can pull from talking about the MVP. I mean, I genuinely feel like LeBron deserves it. This was not a robbery. So in this third segment, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the world champion debate, sort of where it started, why it started, and just my opinions on that overall, where I stand on that opinion. I'll go over that right after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, I'm just going to be talking about the world champion of what debate, because it sparked a lot more attention now, given how the United States ended up winning the gold medal in the end. And, everyone who's been following the Olympics since this quote will sort of know why this quote has meaning. But essentially, Noah Lyles, he's a United States track star, and he has participated in several Olympic competitions. He was in the 100-meter race. He was in the 200-meter race. He was supposed to participate in the 400 meters, but ended up not participating in that because he was diagnosed with COVID, according to reports all over the internet. And so the reason why this quote was, so important and so, popular, and one of the reasons why the United States even assembled this team in the first place, was because of Noah Lyles and his comments towards the United States and the NBA and United States sports in general. So every single time that an NBA champion is crowned, they often call themselves world champions, and it's they're sort of dubbed as the world champions if you win an NBA championship. And Noah thought it would be a little interesting to spark some controversy, saying world champion of what, given how it is a national competition and not necessarily a global competition, like how it is for FIBA, like how it is for the FIBA World Cup for the basketball side, as well as, the FIBA World Cup for soccer. Like soccer, they have other leagues, but they don't call themselves world champions if they win that league. So it was sort of to spark controversy, and a lot of NBA players didn't really like that quote. and thought it was just an unfair statement to say, and it was a little bit disrespectful. And a lot of people didn't really agree with it. Some people did agree with it, but some people didn't. I, for one, I don't agree with that quote at all. And this is the reason why. If you play in the NBA, you are playing in a league where all the best basketball players in the world go and compete. Like, the best basketball players in the entire world compete in the NBA. There were 65 NBA players in this Olympics alone, and it's like it's the place to go to when you want to play basketball. And if you're in that league and you're participating in that league, you're already the best in the world. There is no other league that has a team that's able to compete in the NBA, and there's no other team in the world that can compete against an NBA team. Like, that's just not happening. So you are essentially, like, you know, the best players in the world if you win an NBA championship. Therefore, you should be called the world champions because there's no team that is going to be able to beat you. That's my opinion, and that's where I stand on that. And so a lot of people, mainly NBA fans, didn't really agree with this take on what Noah Lyles had to say. So assembling this team and winning this Olympic tournament, you would think that now the United States can call themselves world champions. But that's also not the case as well, according to some people, and one of those people is Noah Lyles. According to this article that I pulled up right here, Noah Lyles was referring to Anthony Edwards as an Olympic champion instead of a world champion amid recent drama between the two athletes. This is an article that I pulled up. So it says Team USA demonstrated why they are recognized as the most successful team in international competition. The American men's basketball team displayed incredible talent on the court, resulting in another gold medal for the country at the Olympics. Despite widespread praise from American basketball fans following their impressive 98-87 victory against France, one American athlete at the Olympics expressed dissatisfaction with the Team USA success. Noah Lyles, American track and field athlete, recently posted a taunting message about Anthony Edwards on Twitter, or X, if you guys, you want to use those terms. There's a rumor going around that I did not go to Anthony Edwards' shoe release because he didn't deserve it. That is not the case. He definitely deserves his shoes. He is an amazing player. The problem was finding time based on my prior engagements. Congratulations on becoming an Olympic champion. So the fact that he used the word Olympic there instead of world champion, just, it sparks even more controversy because it's like, what do you need to be considered a world champion? Because, a lot of people would have thought that, he would have put, I'm surprised he even said Olympic champion instead of world champion, because it's like, I thought the entire debate and like the entire beef with this man was because, they weren't representing the world in the competition. They were presenting their national team. But once he won a title that could be won, or once he won a gold medal, that is, it's a competition where you compete against other countries, I would assume that he would call themselves world champions, but that's not the case. So I don't know if this was like, a shot that he took at the United States, at the men's basketball team, or if this was, if this was just him like giving praise and he didn't even think of using the word world champion. Because in the post, the sprinter, who was recently criticized by his fans, referred to Edwards as an Olympic champion rather than a world champion, sparking heavy criticism from Team USA supporters. Fans did not hold back their disapproval and criticized Lyles on the comments section of the post. And to be honest, I think at this point, you're just looking for more attention. Like, that's sort of my stance on it. I feel like from the get-go, he's been saying these kinds of things to sort of just spark that attention and for him to just get that attention. And now that, his words essentially backfired because now there's nothing that he can say in regards to them being world champions or not, now it's sort of like he has to sort of eat his words, but now he's not, like, it doesn't really look like that's what he's doing. Like, when he's saying and calling them Olympic champions, it doesn't really look like he's, giving them the respect that they genuinely deserve, because they are world champions now. Like, there's nothing that you can really do or, like, say about that. They won an Olympic medal when the pressure was on them to win an Olympic gold medal. And a lot of people, some people actually, supported Noah's claim, calling them Olympic athletes, because they technically still haven't won the FIBA Basketball World Cup, which is technically the world champions. Like, those are, whoever wins that is technically, like, they're dubbed as the world champions. But when you're in the Olympics, you're essentially doing the exact same thing. It's more or less the same nations and the same teams competing against each other for a FIBA basketball award. So if you win the Olympics, I would imagine that you win the world championship. But apparently, according to Noah, this isn't really the case, given, those tweets that he had and the tweet that he pulled out. I mean, and the debate on whether or not he actually attended the Anthony Edwards thing and whether or not he was there, that's still, like, that still remains to be, like, figured out. Like, we still have no idea whether or not he was there or not. And it just seems that he's saying all of these things to just garner attention. And I'm not entirely sure if, again, this is just me speculating, so don't take my entire word for it. But if he said this, and if he genuinely, like, believed this, like, believed that Anthony Edwards didn't deserve his shoe, like, if he said that before and now he's just retracting on his statement, I really think, like, he's just garnering attention, because it's like, it really doesn't make any sense how they win an Olympic champion. You win an Olympic gold, everyone calls you a world champion, but now when the United States men's team wins, like, when the men's basketball team wins an Olympic gold, they aren't dubbed world champions. I don't get that. But let me know in the comments what you guys think of the whole world champion of what debate. Are you guys paying attention to it? Do you guys even care about it? Do you guys just go USA all the way? Because this is another problem that's, like, it's not really been talked about with, the United States and the Olympics, but it's like, it's really how divided all of us are as Olympic fans too. Like, Noah really divided Olympic fans. I that's sort of how I feel like it, because, like, if he hadn't have said nothing, like, if he didn't say anything, I would be rooting for him in the track and field. Like, I was rooting for him, but a lot more people would root for him, and we wouldn't have this debate inside the Olympics on, and put us head to head against, our own United States athletes, because that's sort of what this did. Like, a lot of fans of Noah Lyles weren't fans of the NBA teams, and they weren't fans of the United States men's basketball team, and a lot of men's basketball team fans weren't fan of Noah Lyles, when we should all be a fan of both of them since they represent the United States. But, like, this is sort of like one of those things that happen as a repercussion of his actions, and I don't really think that that's really fair. Like, that's just not cool, right? But those are my opinions. Let me know if you guys have different opinions. But in this fourth segment, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Tyrese Haliburton and his alleged injury. The MRI results were sort of held to by the United States, so I'm just going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that, and this being the reason why I didn't really talk about Haliburton not playing as many minutes in these Olympic Games. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about Tyrese Haliburton and the MRI of his that was just released. And, This was all sort of started because, like, a lot of people were questioning why I didn't talk about Tyrese Haliburton playing at all. Like, when Jason Tatum wasn't playing, Haliburton was also not playing, and, like, while other people were talking about Tatum not playing, there weren't that many people talking about Haliburton not playing, so I'm just going to go ahead and explain why. But in one of the games, I covered this before, but a lot of people, I don't think they really paid attention. But in one of the games that Haliburton played in, he ended up suffering a leg injury, and that leg injury was sort of the reason why he was sort of, avoided in the rotations, and one of the big reasons why he didn't play in some of these matchups. Now, a lot of people wondered why he wasn't playing and spent most of his time on the bench, and it turns out he was a little injured, like he wasn't 100%. Brian Windhorst reported that Haliburton suffered a minor leg injury during the Olympics that kept him off the floor. Team USA didn't announce it, but he had an MRI, and that's what sources told Windhorst. And Haliburton didn't play in Team USA's semifinal game against Serbia or in Saturday's gold medal game against France. And he saw action in 3 out of the 6 games in the Olympic tournament and totaled 8 points and 2 assists in just over 26 minutes on the floor. Despite the lack of playing time, Haliburton didn't really let that ruin his experience on his first Olympics. After Team USA defeated France 98-87 to win the gold medal, he even poked fun at himself on social media, saying, "When you ain't do nothing on the group project and still get an A." So he knows that he didn't really do much for the United States winning, but he was proud of being part of that group anyway. So it would be difficult to Haliburton to see time on the floor even if he were healthy, as the Team USA roster was crowded with stars and needed some players to sacrifice for the greater good. Tatum, who was thought to be an important piece after leading the Boston Celtics to a 2024 championship, struggled to earn playing time and had multiple did-not plays that surprised many. And of all the athletes that was on the United States team, he was the only one that ended up making it to the All-NBA first team. And the fact that the only player on the United States that ended up making the All-NBA first team isn't playing just goes to show you just how talented the roster is. And this was sort of the reason why I didn't really talk about Haliburton not playing, because with this injury, like with him suffering this injury, it made sense that he wasn't going to be playing a lot of minutes in this game. And on top of that, it also, like, a lot of people didn't really think he deserved to be on the roster anyway. Like, people were surprised that Haliburton got picked up for this roster instead of Kyrie Irving. And I am one of those people that, is a little bit confused as to why Kyrie wasn't selected for this as opposed to, Haliburton. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Haliburton as a point guard, don't get me wrong, but Kyrie Irving, he's had history with the athletics program with the United States. He's won a gold medal before for the United States, and he's participated in several FIBA tournaments as well. So it doesn't make any sense why he wasn't even, selected for this team, given his history with the Olympic basketball team for the United States. And Haliburton being on it was sort of like a blessing for him, and it's not really something that many people agreed with. But again, I mean, you can't really... He ended up winning the gold medal in the end, but, he didn't really get that much playing time. And I don't really think, even if he was healthy, I don't think he was going to get playing time anyway, just because of, how good this roster is. And, like, Kyrie probably would have seen the floor a little bit more than Haliburton, but with all the point guards and all the guards that they have, they also aren't really making their lives easier with rotations, given, like, how many times they like to substitute for guards. I mean, that entire Team USA was composed of mostly guards. Like, there were barely any forwards. In fact, the only forwards were, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Jason Tatum. Those were the only guys that were, like, true small forwards playing small forward. And a lot of the other players, like, there were only, like, 3 centers. And the fact that there was only 3 of them is just, like, it really shows, like, how the big men situation in the NBA is working. I mean, like, there's barely any big men that you see as dominant, like, barely dominant big men as you see, or as you have seen in previous years. And, I mean, again, I would have much rather liked to see Kyrie as opposed to Haliburton. And I mean, this sort of, now it makes sense why he wasn't, playing. I didn't think that the injury was that bad. Like, I sort of thought that with this, with Tyrese Haliburton getting injured, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like, I didn't really think the injury was that big of a deal because it's like he could rest off the injury while he's on the Olympics. So I thought that's sort of what they were doing, but it looked like he wasn't. From the way that the article is talking about, it would seem like he was unable to play, and like, it didn't matter whether he would be good or not. Like, he was just unable to play, and like that was the real reason why he just wasn't played. But I would have thought that the real reason why was just because, he didn't want to avoid getting injured even more than what he already was, because in the grand scheme of things, the United States was going to end up beating whoever they went up against with, the team that they assembled. It didn't always look that way. I will say it didn't always look that way, but hindsight is 20/20. The United States, they did what they had to do, and they didn't really need Haliburton's help for that. But let me know in the comments, would you have guys liked to see Haliburton play? Would you have rather somebody else were to take his spot? Or do you think that the roster is just fine the way that it is? I personally think that, it should have been somebody else, but those are just my opinions. So with that out of the way, we can go ahead into the final segment. It's going to be one of the more shorter segments of this podcast because it's mainly going to be talking about Steph Curry and, the amazing game that he had against the French national team, as well as the rest of the games that he ended up having in the tournament. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned. And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, yes, you guys are reading that absolutely right. McDonald's from France is thinking of removing curry sauce from their menu. And I'm not even joking when I say this. This is what happens when you play against Steph Curry and when other nations see the talent that Steph Curry is putting on display on the court. He was a very, very bad man in the final two games of these Olympics, and he was a very bad man to the French team. Like, there was one moment in the game where Steph Curry, he had the ball, the shot clock was winding down. He passed the ball to Kevin Durant, but immediately afterwards, Kevin Durant gave it right back. And then Curry did a little move, and then he did a step back and shot the ball over two people's heads. He also shot the ball over Victor Wembanyama, one of the tallest NBA players that the league has seen. And, I mean, there was a picture of him literally shooting over him. He ended up making that shot, and this really just shows you the talent that he has on the court and just how good of a player that he actually is. Like, the French broadcast team, when they were covering the United States finals, when they were covering the Olympic final for the basketball side, they were calling Steph Curry the devil. Like, yes, they literally called Steph Curry the devil. And that has got to be one of the most, like, savage nicknames you could ever have, and one of the most, like, respectful things that a broadcaster could call you. considering how he is French and considering how he is on the French broadcast side, I mean, the fact that you're getting called the devil and that the whole nation is referring to you as the devil is it's just a respect thing for his talents, because like he was really destroying the French team, and that shot that he hit over 2 people and the shot that he hit over Victor is nothing short of impressive. And I mean, like that's really what happens when you go up against someone like Steph. And it's so bad that that McDonald's in France is thinking of getting rid of curry sauce, because they want nothing to do with Steph Curry. They want nothing to do with that man at all. And to be honest, I somewhat, I get it. Like, I understand it. I mean, I wouldn't be, if Victor were to beat us, I wouldn't be mad if we banned baguettes or something like that for a little bit. And I mean, this is just what happens when you go up against Steph Curry. Like, I mean, Steph has never participated in international basketball, and he's never been in the Olympics. This is his first Olympic gold medal, the first time he's won an Olympic gold medal. And people were really like, before Steph Curry was even in the Olympics, they were arguing like, wow, I mean, if Steph was in the Olympics, he would absolutely destroy everyone, and everyone would be at awe at his game. And everybody was in awe at his game. And I wish it would have come a little bit earlier, like, in some of the earlier games, because he really played much better in the final 2 games than he did in the beginning of the tournament. So this was arguably the first time that I can now name a moment in Steph Curry's career where he showed up clutch for a team of his. And that was one, like, that was a staple, and that was like, a little bit of a like, that would hinge on his legacy, not having clutch moments, or like nearly enough clutch moments as you see a lot of these great players have. But thankfully, this was like his legacy game. These last 2 games, they were his legacy game. And a lot of people, again, they were arguing how good he would be if he played against international players, like international teams figuring out how to guard someone like Steph, and on top of that, needing to figure out how to guard someone like Kevin Durant. On top of that, needing to figure out how to guard someone like LeBron. It was a dream. Like, I mean, everyone who was a fan of either LeBron, Steph, or Kevin Durant could appreciate the fact that now they're on the same team, and they could root for the same team in unison. And for even if it was just for a little bit, now they can finally do that. And that's like, it was very cool to watch, very neat to watch. And the fact that Curry is just, getting banned in McDonald's, nothing to do with the Olympics at all. Just, it shows just the impact that the United States basketball has over nations, especially like with the way that they keep winning. I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, like, it's crazy, this game. But that's really all that I have for this segment. It was a much shorter segment than the rest of them, but I mean, like, how much can I really talk about the McDonald's banning curry sauce, right? But thanks for tuning into this podcast. Your support means a lot to us. Please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really makes a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content, as always. And as usual, remember to use the link in the description. We love hearing you guys and what you have to say about the show, whether you have a burning question, a hot take, or just something that you've been dying to share. We're all ears. This show is all about keeping the conversation lively. So use Super Chat. Just hit the $ below the chat box. Send in your message, and it's guaranteed to get featured on the show. It's a great way to support the channel. And we are so grateful that you guys tune in, and each and every one of us, like each and every one of you guys, is so important. And be sure to support the channel. It really does make a difference. And let's keep the conversation going. If Super Chat isn't really your thing, you could also use the link gsmcsports.net to tip or donate and leave a comment or question. We really appreciate your guys and your input. Thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.